Evan sat alone in his quiet apartment, the lights turned off and the curtains closed. He liked the darkness because it kept him away from memories he did not want to face. It was another long night of silence, the kind of silence that made him think too much. He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the floor, feeling the same heavy pain he carried for years. He did not talk to anyone anymore. He did not smile. He lived a life that felt empty and cold. Suddenly, the room lit up with a bright green flash. Evan jumped in shock, his heart racing as he looked around for the source of the light. The lamp flickered, the air felt warm, and a soft humming sound filled the room. He backed away, thinking something was breaking or exploding. Then right in front of him, a small glowing shape appeared on the floor. The light around it faded slowly, like a dying star shrinking into quiet sparks. Evan blinked several times, not believing what he was seeing. On the wooden floor, lying weak and trembling, was a tiny alien girl. She was no bigger than 6 inches, glowing faintly with blue and silver light. Her hair floated softly as if underwater. Her skin shimmered like moonlight. She looked fragile, delicate, and scared. Evan stared at her silently, not sure if he was dreaming or losing his mind. The tiny alien girl tried to stand, but her legs shook and she collapsed again. Her voice was barely a whisper, thin like the sound of a small bell. Help, she said softly. Evan froze where he stood. He had never seen anything like her in his entire life. He did not even believe aliens were real. But now one was in his room, hurt and struggling to breathe. For a moment, Evan wanted to run. His mind told him this was dangerous, strange, and impossible. But something inside him, something human and gentle, pushed him to step closer. He knelt down slowly, afraid he might scare her more. The tiny girl looked up at him with large, silver eyes filled with fear. But when she saw his calm face, her expression softened a little. Evan reached out a hand carefully, moving slowly so she would not panic. He expected her to back away, but instead she tried to crawl toward him. Her tiny fingers trembled as she touched his skin. A small spark of warm energy passed through him. It was gentle, soft, and strangely comforting. Evan felt a warmth in his chest, something he had not felt in a long time. He did not know it, but the tiny alien girl carried a healing presence. Even her simple touch could ease deep pain. He lifted her gently and placed her on his palm. She was so light that he could barely feel her weight. "Are you okay?" he whispered, even though he knew she might not understand his words. The tiny girl nodded slowly, then shook her head as if confused. She pointed at her chest, then at the window, trying to explain something. Evan could not understand her language, but he understood one thing clearly: she was in danger. She needed protection, and somehow she had ended up in his home. Suddenly, a loud buzzing noise echoed outside his apartment window. Evan turned quickly and saw glowing red lights moving across the sky. Strange mechanical drones floated between buildings, scanning the streets with thin laser beams. The tiny alien girl shivered and hid in his palm, covering her eyes in fear. Evan understood instantly. The drones were searching for her. If they found her, they would take her away, maybe even hurt her, and Evan could not let that happen. Not to someone this small and helpless. He quickly closed the curtains and stepped back from the window. His heart beat fast, not from fear for himself, but fear for the little girl in his hands. He placed her on a soft cloth on his table and whispered, "Don't worry. You're safe here." The tiny alien girl looked up at him, her glowing eyes filled with trust. She reached out her hand and touched his finger gently. A warm light spread through his heart again. For the first time in years, Evan felt something break inside him, not pain but a small piece of hope. He had no idea who she was. He did not know why she came, but he knew one thing for sure. This tiny alien girl had entered his lonely life for a reason, and somehow she would heal the pain he hid for years. Even if neither of them understood how yet, Evan carried the tiny alien girl to his couch and placed her gently on a soft towel. She lay there weak and trembling, her faint blue glow flickering like a candle in the wind. He sat beside her, unsure what to do next. His mind raced with questions, but his heart felt strangely calm. For the first time in years, he did not feel completely alone. The tiny girl tried to sit up, but her small body shook too much. Evan leaned closer and whispered, "It's okay. Take your time." She looked at him with her large silver eyes, filled with innocence and fear. Slowly, she touched her chest again, then pointed at him. Evan frowned in confusion, not understanding what she meant. Then she placed a tiny hand on his fingertip. A warm glow spread from her skin into his. It felt like soft light flowing through his veins. Evan inhaled sharply, surprised by the sensation. The warmth traveled to his heart, gently pressing against the pain he carried for years. The heaviness inside him softened for a moment, he felt lighter. He did not know why, but he felt like she was comforting him. The tiny alien girl smiled, a small but bright smile. It was the first time he saw joy on her face, and something inside him shifted. He whispered softly, "Thank you." She nodded, understanding his emotion even if she didn't know his language. Suddenly, the sound of drones echoed outside again. Their deep mechanical hum sent a shiver through the air. The tiny girl flinched and curled into a ball, covering her head with her glowing hands. Evan rushed to the window and peeked through the curtain. More drones were scanning the neighborhood, their red lights sweeping across rooftops and streets. They were looking for her. They were getting closer. Evan closed the curtains tightly, his heart pounding. He returned to the tiny girl and knelt beside her. "You're being hunted," he whispered urgently. She looked up at him, fear shining in her silver eyes. Then she touched his hand again. This time, Evan felt not warmth, but a picture forming in his mind. A memory that wasn't his. A cold lab, bright lights, metal restraints, voices shouting orders, and the tiny alien girl trapped inside a glass cage. Afraid and alone, Evan gasped and pulled his hand back. The girl's glow dimmed as she cried softly. Tiny blue tears fell onto the towel like drops of shimmering light. Evan realized she showed him her past, her pain, her suffering. She had escaped from a place where she was being used, tested, and controlled. She wasn't dangerous, she was just a child, a tiny alien girl running from people who wanted to use her power. Evan felt anger rise inside him. Not at her, but at the ones who hurt her. He gently cupped his hands around her to comfort her. "Don't worry. I won't let them take you back," he whispered firmly. The tiny girl looked up and touched his hand again. Her glow brightened, showing she understood and trusted him completely. Evan stood up and began gathering a bag, if the drones were searching. The area staying here was no longer safe. He packed water, a small box for her to rest in, and some warm cloth. The tiny girl watched him with curious eyes. She tilted her head as he prepared everything. She did not speak much, but her quiet trust made him feel responsible for her. She was counting on him, and he could not let her down. As he prepared to leave, he paused for a moment. His eyes landed on an old photograph sitting on the shelf. It showed Evan with his family, smiling happily, a life before the pain, before the loss. He looked away quickly, feeling the heaviness return. But then the tiny alien girl reached out from the towel and touched his wrist gently. Another warm glow spread through him. This time, it did not erase the pain, but it softened it, like a quiet voice whispering that he was not alone anymore. He lifted her carefully and placed her inside the small box lined with cloth. Her glow brightened as she curled up comfortably. Evan zipped his bag and took a deep breath. Outside, the drone's humming grew louder, but inside his chest something new was growing. A sense of purpose, a fragile hope. He whispered softly, "Let's go. I'll protect you." The tiny alien girl nodded and reached out her small hand toward him. He gently touched it, and for the first time in years, Evan felt a real connection. A bond forming between a broken human and a tiny alien girl. Together, they stepped out into the unknown night, where danger waited, but where healing had already begun. Evan stepped outside with the tiny alien girl safely inside his bag. The night air was cold, and the streetlights flickered weakly like they were afraid of the darkness. He moved carefully, listening to every sound around him. The drones were still searching the neighborhood, their red lights glowing like angry eyes in the sky. The tiny girl Lumi peeked out of the cloth inside the box, her silver eyes filled with worry. Evan whispered, "Stay low. Don't let them see you." Lumi nodded softly, her glow dimming so she wouldn't attract attention. As they walked through the quiet street, Evan felt a strange pressure in the air. It was the same feeling he had the night Lumi appeared. Warm energy swirling around them, mixed with something sharp and cold. Lumi sensed it too. She grabbed the edge of the box and whispered, "Danger! Coming!" Her tiny voice trembled, and Evan believed her completely. He turned the corner and found more drones sweeping across the sky. But these were different. These drones were larger, with blue scanning rays instead of red. They moved slower, but they scanned deeper. They weren't just looking for Lumi. They were searching for anything that carried her energy. Even a faint trace would lead them straight to her. Evan ducked under a parked truck and held his breath. Lumi hid against the cloth, her glow shrinking to a soft flicker. A drone passed overhead with a low mechanical hum. Its scanner beam moved back and forth across the street. Evan stayed perfectly still, his muscles tight, his hands sweating. If the beam touched his bag, it would detect Lumi immediately. The beam moved closer. It stopped just above him. Evan felt his heart pounding like it would burst. But then the drone turned away and floated down the road. Evan exhaled shakily. He heard Lumi whisper, "Thank you." With a soft, relieved tone, he shook his head, whispering back, "No. Thank you for warning me." They kept moving until they reached an old convenience store that had closed years ago. Its windows were cracked and dust covered the broken sign. Evan slipped inside through a back door and sat down behind the counter. For a moment, they had safety, just a moment. He opened the bag and let Lumi climb onto his palm. Her small feet felt warm against his skin. She looked around the shop, her glow brightening slightly. Evan whispered, "Why are they hunting you?" Lumi hesitated, then placed her tiny hand on his finger. A soft wave of light flowed into him again. This time, he didn't see a full memory. Instead, he felt emotions, fear, sadness, loneliness. She had escaped from people who wanted to use her power. She had run until she had no strength left. And somehow she ended up with him. Evan felt anger twist in his chest. She was only a child, tiny, gentle, scared. And yet she was running from forces far stronger than anything he knew. He lifted her gently and said, "You're safe with me. I won't let them take you." Lumi touched his thumb and whispered, "Evan?" "Brave." He blinked, surprised she knew his name. But then he realized she could read emotions and memories through touch. She knew him better than he expected. Better than anyone had in years. Suddenly, the glass window of the shop cracked loudly. Evan jumped to his feet. Lumi hid behind his fingers, trembling. A dark shape moved outside, tall, thin, and moving with unnatural speed. This wasn't a drone, this was a tracker. A living creature used by the corporation to find escaped subjects. Its skin shimmered like black metal, and its long head tilted as it sniffed the air. It was searching for Lumi, and it was close, too close. Evan crawled backward. Keeping Lumi close to his chest, he whispered, "Stay quiet. Don't move." The tracker stepped toward the broken window. Its glowing eyes scanned the room slowly. Evan felt his breath freeze in his lungs. Lumi pressed her tiny hands against his chest, trying not to cry. Her glow dimmed completely. She became almost invisible in the shadows. The tracker stepped inside. Its claws scraped the floor. It moved left and right, sniffing, listening, scanning. Evan stayed behind a shelf, gripping the tiny girl tightly but carefully. His heart pounded, but he refused to panic. Not when her life depended on him. The tracker paused, its head tilted sharply. It sensed something. A trace of Lumi's energy. It took a slow step forward, then two more, straight toward them. Evan whispered, "Lumi, I won't let them take you." His voice was soft but full of determination. The tiny alien girl touched his thumb, and in that moment, a small pulse of warm energy surrounded them. Just enough to blur their presence, just enough to confuse the tracker for a few seconds. Those few seconds saved their lives, because Evan grabbed his bag, held Lumi close, and ran out the back door into the night, not knowing where to go, not knowing what waited ahead, but knowing one thing: he would protect her no matter what. Hunted them in the shadows, Evan ran through the dark alley with Lumi held safely against his chest. His footsteps were quick and uneven, but he did not slow down behind him. The metal tracker screeched as it searched the empty street. Its glowing eyes scanned every corner, every shadow, every doorway. Evan felt his heart pounding so hard it hurt, but he kept running, refusing to let fear stop him. Lumi clung to his shirt, her tiny fingers shaking, yet she stayed silent, trusting him completely. After several minutes, Evan slipped into a narrow passage between two abandoned buildings. He leaned against the wall, gasping for air. Lumi peeked out from his pocket, her silver eyes glowing softly in the darkness. "Safe," she whispered. Evan shook his head gently. "No, not yet." He knew the tracker was still searching, and more would come as long as Lumi's energy was easy to detect. He had one choice left: find the scientist who once worked with Lumi's species, a man named Dr. Kellen Reeves, a person Evan never trusted fully, but right now, Dr. Reeves was the only one who might know how to hide Lumi, or at least weaken the signal that the drones and trackers followed. Evan whispered, "Lumi, I'm taking you to someone who might help us." The tiny girl tilted her head, unsure. But when she touched his finger, she sensed his sincerity, his fear, his desperate hope. She nodded, her glow warming his chest like a small heartbeat of light. They slowly moved toward the old part of the city. Every street looked abandoned. Every broken sign swung in the wind with a haunting creak. Evan stepped carefully, staying close to walls and shadows. He listened to the sky, searching for drone sounds. He watched every corner. His body was shaking from exhaustion, but he would not stop, not when Lumi needed him. As they approached an old bridge, Lumi tugged his shirt. "Evan, sad," she whispered. He paused, confused. She pointed to his chest again. She felt his emotions without words, the fear, yes, but also the pain he carried for years, pain he never shared with anyone, not even himself. Evan swallowed hard. He didn't want to talk about the past, but Lumi's eyes were gentle, wanting to understand him. He sighed slowly and whispered, "I lost someone. A long time ago." The words came out shaky, like he hadn't spoken them in years. Lumi reached out and placed her tiny hand on his thumb. A soft glow spread through him, not bright, not overwhelming, just warm enough to make him breathe. "Easier," she whispered. Not alone, just those two small words, but they hit him deeper than anything he had heard in years. Evan looked at her with stunned eyes. This tiny alien girl knew nothing about humans. Yet she understood him better than anyone ever did. Their moment was broken by the sound of metal claws scraping the bridge above. Evan froze. Lumi hid instantly, curling into his pocket. A tracker climbed across the top of the bridge, sniffing the air. Its sensors glowed bright blue. It was close, too close. Evan slowly stepped under the bridge. Staying in the darkest part of the shadows, the tracker growled softly, scanning the street. He stayed completely still, barely breathing. Lumi pressed her tiny hand against his chest. Again, her glow barely visible, but the small warmth helped keep Evan calm, helped him stay focused after a tense minute. The tracker leaped across the rooftops and disappeared into the distance. Evan let out a long breath of relief. He whispered, "We need to hurry." And Lumi nodded quietly. Finally, they reached the outskirts of the old industrial district. A large, worn-out warehouse stood in the center. Its windows were broken, its door half bent, but the symbol Evan looked for was still painted on the wall, a white circle with 3 lines. the symbol of Dr. Reeves' research group. Evan approached the door and knocked 3 times. A small slit opened. A pair of tired eyes looked at him. "Evan," a voice whispered, shocked. Evan nodded urgently. "I need your help. It's about the alien child." The door opened slowly, and Dr. Reeves stepped back, his expression full of fear, curiosity, and something else Evan didn't recognize. Evan walked in and placed his bag on the table. Lumi peeked out of the cloth, her glow lighting the dim room softly. Reeves gasped, "You actually found one?" He whispered in awe. Evan stepped closer. "No," he said firmly. "She found me." Reeves stared at Lumi with a strange mix of fascination and fear. Evan felt uneasy. Something about Reeves' expression didn't feel right, but he shook the thought away. He needed help, and this was their only chance. But Lumi's glow dimmed. She looked at Reeves with a shiver of dread, as if she sensed something dark inside him, something hidden, something dangerous. Evan didn't understand. Not yet, but Lumi did, because her healing power didn't just see emotions, it also saw intentions, and Dr. Reeves' intentions were not pure. Evan carried Lumi deeper into the warehouse as Dr. Reeves closed the heavy metal door behind them. The inside was dim, filled with old machines, papers, and strange humming equipment. Long cables covered the floor like black vines. The air smelled of dust, chemicals, and something metallic that Evan could not recognize. Lumi clung to Evan's shirt tightly, her tiny fingers trembling. Her glow dimmed as she stared at Reeves with uneasy eyes. Evan felt her discomfort and whispered, "It's okay. We're safe here." But Lumi did not seem convinced. Reeves walked forward slowly, his eyes fixed on Lumi with a mix of fascination and hunger. "So this is the tiny alien girl everyone is searching for," he murmured softly. He crouched closer to Evan, trying to examine her. Lumi pulled back, hiding behind Evan's hand. Reeves forced a smile, but it was thin and unsettling. "You don't understand what she represents, Evan," he said calmly. "She is a miracle, a living source of healing energy, a key to technology far beyond us." Evan frowned and stepped back. "I didn't bring her here to be studied," he said firmly. "I brought her here because the trackers won't stop searching for her." Reeves nodded slowly. Yes, I know that," he said. "But you should also know that her power can change everything." He walked toward a desk and picked up a small device, a thin silver tablet glowing with strange symbols. "This can detect her energy signature," Reeves explained. "She carries enough power to heal and to destroy." Evan's stomach tightened at those words. He looked down at Lumi, who was shaking with fear. She whispered, "Evan." "Bad." Her voice was tiny but full of certainty. Evan's heart sank. She had sensed something dark inside. Reeves from the start. Before Evan could react, Reeves snapped his fingers. 2 large metal doors slid shut behind them, locking the room. The lights brightened, revealing machines lined along the walls, tables covered with restraints and wires. This wasn't a safe place. This was a lab built for capturing and studying alien life. Reeves stepped forward again, his expression colder than before. "Evan?" "Hand her over," he said quietly. "It's the only way to control what's coming." Evan shook his head, holding Lumi closer to his chest. "No, I won't let you hurt her," he whispered. Reeves sighed as if disappointed. "You don't understand. She's not just a child," he said sternly. "She's the final piece of an experiment I started years ago." Evan felt a chill run through him. "You experimented on her people?" he asked in disbelief. Reeves smiled bitterly. "They were never people to me. They were research subjects." Lumi let out a tiny cry. Her glow flickered weakly. She understood every word, every cruelty, every betrayal. Reeves stepped closer and reached out his hand. "Give her to me, Evan," he said sharply. "Before the corporation gets here. Or worse, before the others of her kind do." Evan backed away until his back hit the wall. he whispered. Lumi. Stay behind me. Lumi pressed her tiny hand against his thumb. A small warm light surrounded him, her healing energy calming his fear, giving him strength. Reeves frowned. I see she already bonded with you, he said coldly. That makes things complicated. He pressed a button on his wrist device. Metal clamps snapped open from the ceiling. Mechanical arms reached down, shining with cold steel. They moved toward Evan and Lumi like silent snakes. Evan dodged the first one, pulling Lumi into his jacket, but another arm caught his shoulder, slamming him against the wall. He groaned in pain, but he held onto Lumi tightly. Reeves walked up to them slowly. There is no point fighting, he said calmly. I will take her. And you will step aside. No. Evan whispered, his voice shaking. She's not yours. Lumi pressed her tiny hands to Evan's chest. Her glow brightened. Her energy spread through him like a wave of courage. She whispered, Evan? Strong, and something inside him awakened, a strength he didn't know he had. He broke free of the mechanical arm with a desperate push. The machine sparked and malfunctioned. Reeves stepped back in surprise. You fool! He shouted. She's the only hope of controlling the alien technology. Without her, humanity is doomed. Evan glared at him. No. Humanity is doomed if people like you control it, he said. Suddenly, the ground began to shake. Screeches echoed outside the warehouse. Blue lights shone through the cracked windows. The corporation's alien hunters had arrived. Reeves panicked and ran to another console. They're here. We have no time. Evan grabbed Lumi tightly. We're leaving, he whispered. Lumi nodded, her glow steady and brave. Evan ran toward the back exit. Reeves shouted behind him. You can't save her. You can't save anyone. But Evan didn't look back. He pushed through the metal door and escaped into the night, holding Lumi close, both of them breathing fast, both of them knowing the real battle had just begun. Evan burst through the back door of the warehouse, gasping for breath as the cold night air hit his face. Behind him, alarms echoed through the building, and metal doors slammed shut one after another. Lumi held tightly onto his jacket, her tiny fingers digging into the fabric. Her glow trembled with fear, but she did not look away from him. She trusted him with everything she had, and that trust gave Evan strength he didn't know he still possessed. Blue lights flashed across the alley as alien hunters landed on the rooftops. Their armor gleamed like polished stone, and their sharp limbs clicked against the metal pipes above. These were not simple drones or mechanical trackers. These were living soldiers, faster, deadlier, and created for one purpose: to capture beings like Lumi. Evan ducked behind a dumpster as a beam of scanning light swept across the alley. The ground buzzed with energy, making the air hum dangerously. Lumi covered her ears, trembling. Evan whispered, It's okay. I've got you. Her silver eyes lifted to him, shining through the darkness. She pressed her tiny hand to his chest. A warm light spread through him, calming his shaking breath. Evan? Strong, she whispered softly. Her voice soothed the fear inside him. It reminded him that he wasn't running alone. He crawled toward a broken fence and squeezed through, entering a narrow path behind old buildings, rusted cars, and shattered windows lined the ground. The city felt empty, abandoned, like a forgotten battlefield. Evan felt his legs weaken from exhaustion. He had been running nonstop, his heart pounded, his lungs burned, but he refused to stop. Suddenly, a hunter landed behind them with a heavy thud. Its sharp claws scraped the pavement as it stood tall. Its glowing blue eyes locked onto Lumi instantly. Evan froze, his body tensing with fear. He turned slowly, shielding Lumi with both hands. The hunter screeched, a piercing metallic cry that echoed down the alley. It raised its weapon-like arm toward him. Lumi cried out, Evan! Her voice tiny yet full of terror. The hunter lunged at him. Evan tried to dodge, but it was too fast. A sharp limb struck him across the back. sending him crashing to the ground. Pain shot through his body. He groaned, struggling to get up. Lumi tumbled from his jacket and rolled onto the ground. Her glow flickered weakly. Evan reached for her, crawling despite the pain. But the hunter stepped between them, blocking his way. "Lumi, run," Evan whispered through clenched teeth. But Lumi didn't run. She pushed herself up on shaky legs and limped toward him, her glow dimming with every step, her voice shaking as she said, "No." "Evan hurt. Lumi, help." The hunter roared and raised its arm to strike Evan again. Lumi leaped toward him with all the strength her tiny body had. She pressed both glowing hands onto Evan's chest as the hunter attacked. A wave of bright white light burst outward. The alley exploded with warmth and energy. Evan felt pain rush out of him like smoke leaving his body. His wounds closed, his breath calmed, his strength returned. But Lumi's glow faded dangerously. The hunter staggered backward, its armor sparking. The blast had disrupted its sensors and balance. Evan stood up slowly, realizing Lumi had used her healing on him. But the cost was clear. She was weaker than ever. Her small body flickered like a dying star. Evan caught her in his hands before she could fall. "Why did you do that?" he whispered, tears burning in his eyes. Lumi touched his cheek gently, her voice soft and fading. "Evan hurt. Lumi, fix. Evan heart. No more pain." Her words broke him. She wasn't only healing his physical injury, she was healing the emotional wounds he carried for years. The sadness, the loneliness, the heartbreak he never shared with anyone. She saw it all, and she chose to save him, even if it meant losing her own strength. The hunter regained balance and screeched loudly. Reinforcements landed on the rooftops. Multiple hunters jumped down, surrounding them from all sides. Blue lights flickered, preparing to strike. Evan held Lumi protectively. He knew he couldn't run anymore. He knew he couldn't fight them alone. But he also knew one thing with absolute certainty. Lumi had given everything to save him, and now it was his turn to save her. He stood tall, holding the tiny alien girl close to his chest. "No one is taking her," he said in a trembling but fierce voice. The hunters screeched, preparing for attack. Lumi weakly grabbed his finger, her glow faint but determined. "Evan, not alone," she whispered. Her light pulsed once, a signal calling something deep in the night sky. And far above the city, something answered, a distant hum, a light forming in the clouds, a presence moving closer. Lumi's people had heard her call. The real battle had just begun. A deep hum filled the night air, growing louder with every passing second. The hunters around Evan paused, their heads lifting toward the sky. Blue lights flickered across their armor as they scanned the clouds above. Evan held Lumi tightly against his chest, her tiny body weak, her glow fading like a dying ember, but her eyes shined with hope. "Evan, they come," she whispered softly. He looked up and saw the clouds parting. A beam of silver-blue light descended from the sky like a falling star. The hunters screeched in alarm, their metallic bodies tense and ready. But something in that light made them step back, made them fear. Evan had never seen aliens afraid before, whatever was coming. It was powerful, and it was here for Lumi. The light touched the ground, forming a glowing doorway in the air. Out of it stepped three tall figures with soft silver skin and glowing markings. They moved gracefully, their bodies surrounded by shimmering energy. These were Lumi's people, not hunters, not machines, but protectors. Their presence filled the alley with peace and strength. The hunters hissed and prepared to attack, but the tallest alien raised a hand. A wave of light rippled outward. The hunters were thrown back like leaves in a storm. Their armor sparked violently, their systems shutting down. One by one, they collapsed to the ground. Powerless, Evan stared in shock. These beings didn't fight with weapons. They fought with pure energy. The tallest alien stepped toward Evan, its glowing eyes soft and bright. It bowed its head slightly, a peaceful gesture. Then it looked at Lumi and Evan's hands. Lumi reached out her tiny hand weakly, whispering, "Mother." Evan's eyes widened. He finally understood. These weren't just members of Lumi's species. This was her family. Her people had come to rescue her. The alien mother knelt in front of Evan. Her voice was musical, calm, and filled with emotion. As she spoke, "You saved our child," she said. "Few of your kind would show such courage." Evan shook his head, his voice breaking as he whispered, "She saved me too." In ways I can't explain, Lumi reached up and touched Evan's cheek, her tiny fingers glowing again. Her mother placed her hands around Lumi gently, but Lumi didn't let go of Evan. She held onto him with all her remaining strength, her tiny voice trembling as she whispered, "Evan, you healed too." Lumi heart happy. Evan felt tears spill down his face. He touched her gently, not wanting to say goodbye. The alien mother noticed Lumi's fading glow and looked at Evan with concern. "She has given too much of her healing energy," she said softly. "If we do not restore her soon, she will not survive." Evan's heart tightened painfully. He whispered, "Please, save her." The mother nodded and pressed her glowing hand to Lumi's back. Light poured into the tiny girl like water filling an empty cup. Her glow brightened slowly. Her tiny breaths grew stronger. Her silver eyes opened wider. Lumi looked up at Evan and smiled softly, a smile full of warmth, gratitude, and love. "Evan, safe. Lumi safe," she whispered. Evan smiled through tears. "Good. That's all I wanted," he whispered. But the moment was not over. Another group of hunters landed at the end of the alley, far more than before. Their screeches echoed against the buildings. They surrounded the aliens, ready to attack Evan. Stepped forward instinctively, even though he knew he was powerless compared to them. Even though he knew he could die. He refused to hide behind others while Lumi's life was still in danger. The alien mother placed a hand on his shoulder. Her voice calm, "You have done enough. Let us protect you now." The sky burst open with brilliant light. Dozens of Lumi's people descended from the clouds. Their energy filled the night like stars exploding in silence. They formed a protective circle around Evan, around Lumi, and with a single wave of combined energy, the hunters were engulfed in white light and vanished in an instant. The battle ended as quickly as it had begun. Silence returned to the alley. Soft, peaceful, gentle silence. Lumi's mother lifted the tiny girl in her hands. Lumi looked at Evan, her eyes shining with affection. She lifted her tiny hand and whispered, "Evan, thank you. Forever." Evan swallowed hard. He whispered back, "Take care of her. She changed my life." Lumi touched his fingertip one last time. A spark of warm energy filled his heart. A final gift, a final goodbye. The alien stepped back into the glowing doorway with Lumi in their arms. The light wrapped around them like a blanket of stars, and with a soft hum, they disappeared into the sky. Evan stood alone in the quiet alley, but for the first time in years, he didn't feel empty. He didn't feel broken. He felt healed, because a tiny alien girl had taught him that even the smallest heart can bring the greatest light.